Okay, good morning once again, everyone, and welcome to our final seminar for this unit, PG 420, International and Regional Security. We have 7 speakers who will be presenting the answers. The answers will be based on the Development Bulletin published by ANU, or the Australian National University. And the Development Bulletin is titled Perspectives on Pacific Security Future Currents. So we've looked at different readings in the issue itself, and for this particular seminar, we will focus on the one on transnational organized crime by Watson, Sousa Santos, and Sousa Santos is an expert in the region on transnational crimes, transnational organized crime, and you'll see he's written a lot of, he's published a lot of materials or literature on transnational organized crime in the Pacific. So without further delay, I'll introduce our speakers, and then I'll give them the time to share the answers, the assigned answers. So representing Group 1, we have Miss Joycelyn Auta. Representing Group 2, we have Miss Solange Ovia. Representing Group 5, we have Miss Jemima Kawas. Representing Group 7, we have Mr. John Rina Jr. And representing Group 3, we have Miss Sarah Toroy. Group 6 will be represented by Mr. Irai Kaupa, and Group 7 by Miss Amy Wenis. So thank all our presenters and the groups for working together to put the answers, come up with the answers to the questions. So without further delay, I'll hand over the virtual microphone to our first presenter representing Group 1, Miss Auta.
Just confirm that you guys can hear me. Awesome. Good morning, unit facilitator, Mr. Egera, and fellow classmates. Thank you for being present on our last seminar presentation for this unit. Representing the group 1, as mentioned by Mr. Egera, I will be presenting on the given question. Watson, Sousa Santos, and House emphasized the unique vulnerability of Pacific Island countries to transnational crime. How do geographic isolation, porous borders, and limited law enforcement capacity contribute to these challenges? Before we move into answering the question, let us look at the unique vulnerabilities identified from the reading. Unique vulnerabilities of the Pacific Island countries. Firstly, the threat of transnational and organized crime in the Pacific. Limited data exists on transnational and organized crime in the Pacific region. However, available sources suggest several prominent areas of concern, including environmental crimes related to illegal fishing and resource extraction, sex trafficking, which is associated with resource extraction industries such as logging, and trafficking in illicit drugs and precursor chemicals. UN Office on Drugs and Crime 2016 as cited in Watson et al. 2021. Secondly, we have the legislation around transnational and organized crimes. The sanctioning of key international legal instruments and alignment of domestic legislations with these instruments has been identified as key to addressing transnational and organized crimes across the Pacific region. A key turning point in recognizing the need for new legislation occurred in 2004 in Fiji, when a multinational investigation, which was the Operation Outrigger, culminated the seizure of the largest drug manufacturing lab in the Southern Hemisphere. The lab had been established in Fiji by members of the Triad Gang, reportedly from Hong Kong and Malaysia, to produce purified methamphetamine or ice. Sunday 2005. The lab premises contained extremely volatile chemicals and reportedly had a potential explosion radius of up to 300 meters, demonstrating the need for updated legislation to address the banning of precursor chemicals as well as the drugs that they produce. Fiji has reviewed its Illicit Drug Control Act to address the social and economic harms related to drug trafficking and usage in Fiji. And thirdly, police organizations, specifically resource considerations. So, the Pacific Island countries and territories police organizations are primary subsets of each country's security apparatus. All Pacific Island countries and territories have police services or forces that are affiliated with other internal and external bodies and employ a multi-layered approach to transnational and organized crime involving local, regional, and international partners working across multiple agencies. The existence of multiple agencies focused on the same or closely related issues which may, however, reflect a duplication of efforts and resources and may strain already limited or scarce resources. The scarcity of resources a excuse me, highlights a need for better efforts and coordination of agencies and improved cooperation and collaboration to increase chances of effectively addressing transnational and organized crimes. Compounding to these challenges in the substantial is the substantial gap in information on transnational crime in the Pacific. Now, expanding on these difficulties, challenges, or vulnerabilities that have been mentioned, law enforcement agencies in Pacific Island countries and territories or PICTs are frequently faced with resource constraint, um, as mentioned by McLeod. Now, the intricate nature of transnational and organized crimes present significant challenges, making it exceptionally hard to identify, track, investigate, and effectively counter illegal operations, even for police forces equipped with substantial resources. Moving forward, we look at answering the question, how do geographic isolation, porous borders, and limited law enforcement capacity contribute to these challenges? So, geographic isolation and porous borders. In the PICTs, the challenges are exacerbated by the vast geographic expanses of ocean and the limited resources available for patrolling it. Due to the porous borders and geography, this results in the presence of multiple agencies working on similar or related issues, which can lead to redundant efforts and in the end, the inefficient use of limited resources, potentially stretching these resources even thinner, as I've mentioned. This scarcity underscores the importance of enhancing coordination and cooperation among agencies, to improve their collective effectiveness in tackling transnational and organized crime. Adding to these difficulties is a significant lack of information on transnational crime in the Pacific. According to the United Nations Office of Drugs 2016, as cited in Watson et al. 2021, which hampers the development of evidence-based strategies and makes it harder to prioritize the allocation of constrained resources. For instance, Papua New Guinea's geographical location plays a significant role in enabling transnational crime. The country shares borders with Indonesia to the west, Australia to the south, and the Solomon Islands to the southeast. It is situated in the southwestern Pacific region. Due to its location, PNG serves as a transit point for smuggling firearms, drugs, trafficking wildlife, marine piracy, and other transnational crimes across borders. The country poses a high risk for the uncontrolled movement of people and goods by land and sea. As its borders, its borders are largely open. This enables boats to make illegal crossing at night and contraband to be smuggled along the northern and southern maritime borders. Begin and Bateman 2023. For law enforcement, limited law enforcement capacity. For numerous Pacific Island countries and territories, their legal framework are often insufficient to effectively address the scale and variety of crimes occurring within their borders. Certain categories of crime have not yet been incorporated into laws, which hampers efforts to combat them effectively. As a result, organizations face a multitude of challenges when trying to develop suitable responses to new and evolving threats. Regional discussions have also highlighted concerns about the capacity of security agencies such as customs, immigration, and police to manage both current and emerging transnational and organized crime challenges. The degree to which governments and organizations focus on combating transnational and organized crimes varies throughout the region. In certain cases, reforming laws to address these crimes may seem not as a priority. It is often viewed as an externally imposed issue rather than an internal one. So this lack of prioritization at the government level influences policies and hampers organizational capacity to respond effectively. In some jurisdictions, this results in these crimes not being formally recognized within legislations, limiting law enforcement officers' ability to take appropriate action. Hence, this is how limited law enforcement capacity contributes to the challenges. So, to conclude, transnational and organized crimes in the Pacific is a growing concern. The Pacific's the Pacific region's geographic isolation, porous borders, and limited law enforcement capacity significantly heighten its vulnerability to transnational crime. Watson South Sosa and House highlights that these factors create major obstacles for law enforcement agencies, making it difficult to monitor, intercept, and prosecute criminal activities effectively. Um, Additionally, the vast maritime borders and scattered islands provide numerous entry points for illegal operations, while constraints hinder surveillance and enforcement efforts. So these challenges enables criminal networks to exploit gaps in security, reinforcing the need for stronger regional cooperation and strategic intervention. By addressing these vulnerabilities, it requires enhanced policing strategies, legislative reforms, and collaboration of regional stakeholders to combat the growing threat of transnational crime in the Pacific. Thank you, and that is all from Group 1.
Okay, thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you, Group 1, for sharing with us your answer to the assigned question. And it's a really serious concern across the Pacific, especially PNG. And we hope that our coming defense treaty with Australia and our defense cooperation agreement with the US will help us at least address this issue because our territorial seas and our EEZ is unprotected. We don't have the resource and the capability to monitor and track people who are dealing with drugs like methamphetamine. I also sent you a link about Bluetoothing in the Pacific. It's a growing trend now, so hopefully it doesn't come to PNG. And I hope you people, as future policymakers and lawmakers, journalists and concerned citizens, will put a stop to this. We'll move on to our next presenter, representing Group 2, Ms. Solange Ovia.
Good morning, Mr. Yegera and class. I will be representing Group 2. Our discussion reading is Watson, Sousa Santos, and Hoes highlighted the intersection of climate change and crime. Our question reads, how does climate-induced migration and displacement increase the risk of human trafficking and other forms of organized crime in the Pacific. The intersection of climate change and crime has become a major concern in the Pacific region as environmental shifts lead to new criminal patterns and vulnerabilities. Watson, Sousa Santos, and Howes have explored the intersection of climate change and crime, particularly in the context of transnational and organized crime in the Pacific Island countries and territories, PICTs. Throughout the research, they highlighted how the changes in the environment can contribute to new criminal activities, such as illegal fishing, human trafficking, and corruption. The PICTs are characterized by geographic areas, largely ocean, porous maritime borders, which are coastline areas that are difficult to control, and this allows entry for easy access and exit routes, and relatively small populations and scattered across multiple islands. To our question, how does climate-induced migration and displacement increase the risk of human trafficking and other forms of organized crime in the Pacific? So climate-induced migration and displacement in the Pacific creates vulnerabilities that criminal networks exploit, which leads to increase in human trafficking and organized crimes. So you might be wondering, what is organized crimes? Organized crimes are complex of highly centralized enterprises set up for the purpose of illegal activities such as cargo theft, fraud, robbery, amongst others. So what are some contributing factors to this intersection? There are several factors, however, noted and identified are three main factors. Number one is weak legal protection. The legal system for most Pacific Island countries and territories are not fully equipped to deal with magnitude or types of crimes taking place within the Pacific or within the jurisdiction. This is according to Scott Hart 2009. So with the activities taking place, the legal system cannot play its role in emphasizing the need for protection and security. Point number two, limited law enforcement capacities. The struggle with resources constraints makes it difficult to effectively monitor and combat organized crime within the Pacific. Police forces lack funding and resources to maintain an active role or duty within their specific areas. Point number three, increase in smuggling networks. The migration routes are often seen as an advantage by the organized crime groups to facilitate drug smuggling, human trafficking, and other illicit activities. So with these three things that are mentioned, this clearly points out that how climate-induced migration and displacement fuels organized crimes in the Pacific region. So how can we address this? Addressing such major concerns requires solid legal framework. So solid legal frameworks are strong legal systems that will uphold integrity in governance and ensure justice. Regional cooperation, the collaboration of Pacific Island nation in addressing such issues. Onto the economic support. The economic support states that the stability of the economy can directly have an impact on the region's security sector. So this all states that it will strengthen and maintain security within the Pacific region. In conclusion, Pacific Island region is vulnerable to threats of climate-induced migration and displacement, which is a major concern. Three contributing factors were identified and highlighted, which fuels the organized crimes in the region. Addressing these can maintain active roles and protection within the region, as well as to fully equip the legal framework for better legal system. Thank you, and that brings me to the end of this presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Sovia, and also thank you, Ms. Kenny, for allowing Ms. Sovia to use your computer. And we also thank your group 2. We now move on to the next presenter representing Group 5, Ms. Kawas.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Aguirre and PG Force and Safe Force. Confirm if you guys can hear me. Thank you. I will be representing Group 5, and our article title is Perspectives on Pacific Security, Future Currents. And the chapter title is Transnational and Organized Crime in Pacific Island Countries and Territories, Policy Capacity to Respond to the Emerging Security Threat. Our question given to Group 5 was, Watson, Sousa Santos, and ours highlights the limited capacity of law enforcement agencies in the Pacific to tackle transnational crime. What strategies or investments are needed to strengthen law enforcement capabilities in addressing organized crime? Before answering the question, let us first look at the capacity of law enforcement agencies. Organizational capacity to respond to transnational and organized crime varies in Pacific Island countries, with some countries more reliant than others on support from external powers, according to Watson 2020. Many smaller countries across the region lack the capacity to conduct investigations and intelligence gathering, and some outlying islands and villages have limited immediate access to local police. Limited capacity for maritime surveillance or depth of technology to facilitate crime detection, and a lack of exposure to new and emerging crimes also leads to reliance on external bodies to compensate for false shots in skill sets, according to Watson and others 2021. Policing organizations in many Pacific Island countries and territories are often under-resourced, and the complexity of transnational and organized crime makes it difficult to detect, monitor, investigate, and respond effectively to the illegal activities involved, even for well-resourced police organizations. In Pacific Island countries and territories, the challenges are exacerbated by the vast geographic expanses of ocean and the limited resources available for patrolling it. In addition, Sousa Santos 2022 stated that capacity shortfalls and a disconnect between regional law enforcement infrastructure and national law enforcement agencies undermine trust and are detrimental to intelligence sharing and interoperability in cross-border policing efforts. Some examples of transnational organized crimes include drug trafficking, human trafficking, money laundering, cybercrime, arms smuggling, and environmental crimes. Because of their international reach, combating transnational organized crimes requires strong collaboration between countries, law enforcement agencies, and intelligence networks. Now, to answer the question that was assigned to us, what strategies or investments are needed to strengthen law enforcement capabilities in addressing organized crimes? Watson, Sousa, Santos, and Howes highlight the agent need to enhance the Pacific's law enforcement capacity in combating transnational crime. They emphasize the complex nature of criminal networks, which are highly mobile, well-funded, and strategically organized, allowing them to exploit weak border controls. To counter these threats, the authors propose various strategies and investment aimed at boosting law enforcement capabilities. The first one is legislative reform. Because the Pacific Islands face the challenges of lack policing and defense resources, the law may act as a form of judiciary enforcement by enabling the implementation and criminalization of groups and individuals involved in participating in organized crime. At the same time, security agencies such as the Immigration and Customs should be administering protocols along the most significant and vulnerable areas of illegal smuggling and travel. And this can be enforced strictly by reviewing acts and certain procedures and providing a consultative reform within the Pacific to identify the most effective strategy for enforcing legislative directives towards organized crime, organized individual and groups. The second one is interagency cooperation. It is a process in which two or more agencies work to solve a problem or meet a need. This type of partnerships can be formed among all levels of public and private agencies. In the Pacific, interagency cooperation will allow for security organizations, the legislative and judiciary, the law and other bodies and the maritime organizations to work together and establish a more coherent and strictly enforced measures that can efficiently prevent the transnational movement along borders. Currently, we have the Pacific Transnational Crime Network, which was established in 2002 and is a mandated program under the Pacific Island Chiefs of Police that provides a proactive intelligence and investigative network to combat transnational serious and organized crime in the Pacific. The PTCN could act as a transnational crime security actor within the Pacific and provide a platform where the Pacific Island states may utilize to share information and collaborate to initiate security strategies. The third one is to establish the use of technological devices in vulnerable areas at sea borders. The use of technological protocol will allow for a more distinctive and proactive approach towards prompt actions to organized crime, as it provides for real-time and the provision of digital information to have the law and other forces participate in fast action to prevent organized crime. More commonly would be the use of SMART, that is specific, measurable, achieve, relevant, time-bound technology. As defined by MRA Solutions 2024, it is a device and system designed to operate in a more intelligent, efficient, and interconnected manner. This will allow security agencies to install devices such as sensors and actuators device at sea borders and land borders to capture and monitor the movement of potential individuals involved in organized crimes. This will allow for fast networking with other agencies in the Pacific, the utilization of new and current technology as AI and data analysis is in rural areas because of the remoteness, and the capability of technology devices in understanding and responding to user behavior or environmental conditions. This provides for a more designed security system to promote regional collective action. The last and final one is to continuing police training and capacity building initiatives, such as those led by the Australian Federal Police and the New Zealand Police, which focus on leadership, general education, and specialized training programs. In conclusion, addressing transnational and organized crime in the Pacific Islands necessitates a comprehensive and collaborative approach. Strengthening legislative framework is paramount to criminalizing and prosecuting illicit activities effectively. Enhancing interagency cooperation, exemplified by initiatives like the Pacific Transnational Crime Network, facilitates coordinated efforts among law enforcement, immigration, customs, and maritime agencies to combat cross-border crimes. Moreover, integrating advanced technologies such as a real-time surveillance system and data analytics at vulnerable sea and land borders can significantly bolster detection and response capabilities. Collectively, these strategies aim to fortify regional security, uphold the rule of law, and safeguard the sovereignty and stability of Pacific Island nations. Thank you, and that is all from Group 5.
Thank you, Ms. Kawas, and thank you, Group 5, for sharing with us your answer. So if you have any questions or comments for Group 5 or the other groups, please make sure you share in our discussion forum for this week. We move on straight to our next presenter, representing Group 7, Mr. Rina.
Okay, good morning, Mr. Yagura and everyone. So I will be representing Group 7 for this seminar. And the question allocated to us states, Watson, Sousa Santos, and House emphasize the role of non-state actors in addressing organized crime. So the question is, how can civil society organizations and private sector actors be integrated into broader crime prevention strategies in the Pacific? So, the reading by Watson, Sousa Santos, and House emphasizes that transnational and let me start again. So the reading by Watson, Sousa Santos, and House emphasizes that transnational and organized crime presents a significant challenge in the Pacific Island countries and territories. The reading points out issues such as the exploitation of vast maritime borders, weak law enforcement mechanisms, and evolving criminal networks. This reading also emphasizes the weakness of the Pacific Island countries and territories to address such issues due to limited policing capacity, insufficient legal frameworks, and emerging security challenges, including drug trafficking, human smuggling, and environmental crimes. And furthermore, the authors of this reading highlighted the importance of regional cooperation and intelligence sharing to strengthen crime prevention efforts. The integration of non-state actors ensures a multi-sectoral approach, enhancing enforcement capabilities and mitigating security threats. By fostering collaboration among governments, businesses, and communities, the Pacific Island countries and territories can build a more effective and sustainable crime prevention strategy. So, in this presentation, we will explore how civil society organizations and private sector actors can be integrated into broader crime prevention strategies. And to explore this, we will have to understand the role that both of these entities play in our society. Now, the first one is the role of civil society organizations. Civil society organizations are non-governmental entities such as Greenpeace and Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat that operate independently from the state and private sector to address social, political, and economic issues. They include advocacy groups, community-based organizations, non-profit organizations, and international NGOs that work to promote human rights, environmental protection, public welfare, and policy reform. So essentially, civil society organizations play a crucial role in crime prevention by fostering community engagement, advocating for policy reforms, and supporting victims of crime. And so some of their contributions to our society include community awareness and education, where civil society organizations often conduct outreach programs to educate communities about crime risk and prevention measures. For instance, in Papua New Guinea, civil society organizations have launched community engagement workshops in fishing villages to educate locals about the impacts of illegal fishing, human trafficking, and smuggling. The next one is policy advocacy. By lobbying for stronger governance frameworks, civil society organizations influence legislative changes that enhance crime prevention. This would ensure that foreign entities would comply with the Pacific's law and regulations or even sustainable practices. And lastly is victim support services, where many civil society organizations provide rehabilitation and support services for victims of organized crime, helping reintegrate them into society. Okay, now moving on to the role of private sector actors. In this context, private sector actors refer to businesses, corporations, and industry stakeholders that play a role in crime prevention, maritime security, and governance within Papua New Guinea and the broader Pacific region. So these entities operate independently from government control but can collaborate with public institutions to address organized crime challenges such as illegal fishing, smuggling, and transnational crime. The private sector contributes to crime prevention through corporate social responsibility initiatives, technology innovations, and collaboration with law enforcement agencies. So some of the key areas of the involvement of private sector actors include public-private partnerships, where businesses collaborate with governments to fund security initiatives and support crime prevention programs. Next one is technology and innovation. Private sector investment in surveillance, cybersecurity, and data analytics enhances crime detection and prevention. The last one is ethical business practices, where companies implement anti-corruption measures and ethical supply chain practices to reduce criminal exploitation. Now, how can pardon, how can the integration of civil society organizations and private sector actors into crime will help create more prevention strategies in the Pacific? So integrating civil society organizations and private sector actors into broader crime prevention strategies in the Pacific can hence can a- can enhance security and resilience against organized crime. And so here are some effective approaches. Number one is public awareness and community engagement, where civil society organizations can educate communities about crime risk, reporting mechanisms, and legal rights. And private businesses can fund initiatives that promote social responsibility and crime prevention. Number two is public private partnerships. Businesses can collaborate with governments to support crime prevention programs, surveillance technology, and law enforcement training. Lastly, is technology innovation. Private sector investment in cybersecurity, satellite monitoring, and AI-driven crime detection can improve regional enforcement efforts. Now, from the reading, we have also identified three challenges that may likely persist while integrating civil society organizations and private sector actors into crime prevention strategies. So these challenges include limited resources. Many Civil society organizations operate with constrained funding, limiting their ability to scale or create initiatives to address issues relating to broader crime prevention strategies. Next one is coordination issues. Effective collaboration between non-state actors and government agencies requires clear communication and shared objectives. So, for example, government agencies, civil society organizations, and private sector actors often work independently, leading to delays in intelligence sharing and enforcement actions. Or private sector stakeholders may prioritize business interests over strict maritime regulations, creating tensions with enforcement agencies. And the last one is regulatory barriers. Legal frameworks must be adapted to facilitate private sector participation in crime prevention efforts. But despite these challenges, opportunities still exist for strengthening partnerships and leveraging innovative solutions to combat organized crime in the Pacific. Now, in conclusion, addressing organized crime in the Pacific, non-state actors play a vital role in strengthening crime prevention strategies. Civil society organizations can enhance community awareness, advocate for policy reforms, and provide victim support, while private sector actors contribute to technology, public-private partnerships, and ethical business practices. So collaborative intelligence sharing, regional cooperation, and investment in surveillance systems further strengthen security efforts. So by integrating civil society organizations and private enterprises into governance frameworks, Pacific nations can develop stronger, full approaches that strengthen resilience and combat illicit activities and safeguard economic and social stability. So, a multi sectoral strategy is essential for sustainable crime prevention in the region. A full approach to crime prevention in the Pacific requires the active involvement of civil society organizations and private sector actors. Therefore, by fostering collaboration, investing in technology, and advocating for policy reforms, non state actors play a key role in addressing organized crime and enhancing regional security within the Pacific. And that is all from Group 7. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rina, and thank you, Group 7, for a very detailed answer to the assigned question. So apart from state actors like the police and the military and other government bureaucratic organizations, we also need the civil society and the private sector to step up and work together with state agencies to address the threat of transnational organized crime. Thank you, John, and thank you to all the other presenters so far. We'll move on to our next presenter representing group number 3. We have Ms. Toroy.
Once again, good morning, Mr. Yagira and class. For today's seminar, the statement given to us reads, according to Watson, Sousa Santos, and House, addressing transnational crime requires regional cooperation. How can Pacific Island countries strengthen collaborative mechanisms to combat organized crime while protecting national sovereignty? So to answer the given question, Group 3 has read through the perspective on Pacific security from the required readings, and the last chapter, which is on transnational and organized crime in the Pacific Island countries and territories. Police capacity to respond to the emerging security threat. Now, to answer this question, let us look at it in 3 parts. Firstly, let us look at some of the existing collaborative mechanisms. Before we look at that, look at the first point on existing collaborative mechanisms, let us look at a little background on the chapter. So the transnational and organized crime is supported by complex and multi-layered networks that are mobile, well-resourced, and strategically coordinated, which allows them to operate across international borders. This is according to Denderan 2007 and Lime 2011. According to Medicine 2009, many argue that such crimes are primarily opportunistic in nature, run by global connectivity and the potential for large profit margin. So in the region, the vast ocean, porous maritime border, and relatively small populations scattered around the ocean makes it an attractive area for transnational and organized crimes because of factors such as low risk of detection. Policing in the region is a challenge because many Pacific Island countries and territories are under-resourced. This is according to McLeod 2009. So the multi-layered and complexness of the organized crimes make it quite difficult to detect, monitor, investigate, and for policing officers to respond effectively to the illegal activities. In the Pacific region as well, many of these legal systems are not well equipped to deal with the magnitude or types of crimes taking place, with some crime classifications yet to be added to the local legislations, which limits the effectiveness in addressing these crimes. So from the mentioned points, we can see the significant need for collaborative efforts in the Pacific Island countries and territories to deal with transnational and organized crimes. Now, some of the existing collaborative mechanisms in the region are, the organization capacity to respond to transnational and organized crime varies in the Pacific Island countries and territories. So with some countries depending more heavily than others on the support provided by external partners. This is according to Watson 2020. Now, some of the existing collaborative mechanisms in the Pacific are, number one, the existing capacity development programs that have been going on for years, which involves the deployment of Australian and New Zealand police to Pacific Island countries and territories. The deployed officers act as advisors or work alongside Pacific police officers to develop leadership skills and deliver specialized and education training. The other one is the Pacific Prevention of Domestic Violence Program. And we also have the Partnership for Pacific Policing, the 3P initiative led by the Australian Federal Police, such as Pacific Police Development Program Regional, Cyber Safety Pacifica, and the Pacific Forensic Working Group. Now, from the mentioned existing collaborative mechanisms, let us now dive into how to strengthen these collaborations. As the authors have mentioned, responding to transnational and organized crimes requires collaborative effort to current and anticipated threats. Now, from the Bow Declaration, which highlights transnational crime, human security, environmental and resource security, and cybersecurity, mentions enhancements such as information and intelligence sharing between law enforcement at both the national and regional levels, the ratification and implementation of relevant international conventions on transnational crimes such as the Palermo Convention, and also internal focus on transnational and organized crimes is also relevant, so that internal needs within nations and the region could be met to tackle the issues while maximizing limited resources and prioritizing immediate threats. I will add that it is better for countries to be proactive on such issues. And finally, how Pacific Island countries and territories can strengthen these collaborations while maintaining the national sovereignty. This can be done in multiple ways, but I will focus on three. Number one, well-defined laws and regulations. Having internal laws that directly affect the scope of external frameworks and agreements. Number two, selective engagement or engaging based on priorities. Partnering with organizations and countries based on priority or specific needs or interests without risking independence. And the final one is effective government systems or strong domestic institutions, making sure that government structures are strong and reliable so that external partnerships do not override or influence national decision-making. To conclude, regional collaborations are necessary to tackle transnational and organized crimes in the Pacific region. It is relevant to strengthen the existing partnerships or create new ones to properly address this issue while protecting each nation's sovereignty through well-defined regulations, selective engagement, and effective government system. Thank you. That brings us to the end of the presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Torre, and thank you, Group 3, for sharing with us your answer to the assigned question. Very good answer, and I hope all of you are following what your peers have shared with us, taking note of the interesting points that they've shared. We'll move on to our second last presenter representing Group 6, Mr. Kaupa.
Once again, Mr. Yagura and my fellow postmates, I will be presenting on behalf of Group 6. The statement that was allocated to our group is Watson, Sousa, Santos, and ours suggests that international partnerships are key to combating transnational crime in the Pacific. How can Pacific nations balance reliance on external support with the need to maintain local ownership of security initiatives? Firstly, let's delve into the first part of the statement that was allocated to our group. The statement is Watson, Sousa, Santos, and ours suggest that international partnerships are key to combating transnational crimes in the Pacific. As stated in the document titled Transnational and Organized Crime in the Pacific Island Countries and Territories, Daniel Watson, Lucy Santos, and Leon West suggest that international partnerships and bilateral agreements between Pacific Island nations play a vital role in countering transnational crime in the Pacific region. The report highlighted the importance of external support, especially from Australia, New Zealand, and other regional organizations, towards aiding Pacific Island countries and territories deal effectively with transnational crime. Pacific Island countries cannot manage the scale and manner of transnational threats alone. Therefore, collaboration among Pacific Island countries is of paramount importance when addressing transnational threats. This external collaboration must not interfere with the Pacific Island countries' leadership, development, and sovereignty. Now, with all that being said, now let's move to the question allocated to Group 6, that is, how can Pacific Island nations balance reliance on external support with the need to maintain local ownership of security initiatives? Pacific Island countries have substantial areas of their territories being covered in ocean and seas, and relatively small populations that are spread across multiple islands. These challenges are heightened by the vast geographic expanse of ocean and the limited resources available for patrolling it. Therefore, there is minimal risk of detecting, investigating, and prosecuting these crimes by local and international law enforcement agencies. There are several challenges that hinder Pacific Island countries' ability to properly address transnational crimes in their respective territories, and therefore call for a joint effort by international partners. We highlighted three of these challenges. The first one is outdated domestic legislation around transnational and organizational crime. Many of the Pacific Island nations are still relying on legal frameworks that were designed decades ago and have not been reviewed and updated to address offenses such as cybercrime, drug trafficking, human smuggling, and money laundering. Integrating key international laws and aligning them to domestic legal frameworks are important steps that should be undertaken by Pacific Island countries to effectively counter transnational and organized crime. This will enable legal consistency across the Pacific, encourage cooperation among Pacific Island countries, and enable them to effectively deal with complex criminal activities internally. Governments and organizations in the Pacific fight transnational crime at various levels accordingly. In some places, updating laws to deal with these crimes is not seen as a primary priority because it is seen as an external issue rather than a domestic one. When governments do not prioritize this, it affects police planning and limits how well they can deal with these crimes. In other areas, these types of crimes are not clearly mentioned in the law yet, therefore making it hard for police to act. Secondly, under-resourced security forces. Another major challenge that is faced by the Pacific Island countries is under-resourced security forces, which limit their capability to deal with transnational and organized crime. Many Pacific Island countries do not have sufficient funding, training, equipment, and manpower for their police and border security forces to effectively patrol their borders. This makes maritime and land surveillance ineffective due to inadequate resources, thus limiting their ability to investigate complex crimes and respond quickly to threats. This may result in criminal organizations exploiting these weaknesses and operating with little to no resistance. However, there have been reports that cooperation with larger regional partners like Australia and New Zealand can sometimes be one-sided. These larger partners may lead joint operations and benefit unequally from intelligence gathered and outcomes. A major issue is that in joint operations, bigger countries sometimes hold back important information from smaller ones. They say it is to protect sensitive data, as they worry legal agencies may not be able to keep it secure. When dealing with sensitive cases, larger countries may limit the flow of information to their partners by explaining their concerns over information security. While this concern may be valid, it can also undermine trust and limit the effectiveness of joint crime fighting operations. For cooperation to be effective, it must be mutual, with all parties benefiting, transparent, with open communication, and inclusive, with smaller nations treated as equal stakeholders. Finally, limited capability to respond to transnational and organized crime. International and regional cooperation is essential as it not only provides the Pacific Island countries with instruments necessary to fight transnational and organized crime, but it also provides the smaller Pacific Island nations with financial aid, upskill training, and relevant equipment. A lot of Pacific Island countries face serious limitations like manpower, technology, and equipment that undermine their ability to respond effectively to transnational and organized crime. These limitations include small, under-resourced police and border security forces, a lack of specialized training and technology, and challenges posed by their vast and scattered geography. In many cases, law enforcement lack the tools and expertise needed to investigate complex crimes such as drug trafficking, human smuggling, and cybercrime. Poor coordination between agencies further weakens national responses. As a result, criminal networks often exploit these weaknesses, using the region as a transit point. This limited capacity not only limits quick law enforcement efforts, but also undermines long-term security and stability in the region. In conclusion, to effectively fight transnational and organized crime in the Pacific region, capacity building must fit real needs and limits of local police forces. This means having honest, culturally respectful discussions with national and international partners, especially partners like Australia, about how outside help will affect local operations. A major challenge is that money and resources are limited, and some leaders may be influenced by corruption or personal gain. That is why any plan to improve policing must focus on the long term, involve local people and leaders, and ensure all government agencies work together. There are already regional groups like the Pacific Islands Forum, PIF, and Pacific Island Chiefs of Police, PCIP, that help countries share resources and talk openly. This group should support Pacific-led efforts so island nations can guide their own crime prevention strategies. Success will depend on building stronger connections between police and other services like health education to help communities stay safe and strong. That is all from Group 6, and all the best in the upcoming research presentations and exams.
Thank you, Mr. Kaupa, and thank you, Group 6, for sharing with us your answer. It's important for us to, come up with our own homegrown solutions, and then once we have our strategies in place, then we can invite our external partners to come in, because they don't know our context and they don't know our community, our culture, society, like we know ourselves. So that's interesting, something for people to note. Let's move on to our final presenter representing Group 4. She's been waiting patiently, and we'll give her the space and time to share with us her answer. Ms. Wenis, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Yagiora. Good morning, fellow colleagues and other viewers. I will be representing Group 4. My group was assigned with the question, Watson, Sosa Santos, and Aus discuss how economic disparities in the region fuel organized crime networks. What policy interventions could address the underlying economic factors that make Pacific nations vulnerable to illicit activities? Before I continue, let me define what economic disparities are. As defined by Studies Matter, economic disparities refer to the unequal distribution of wealth, income, and resources among individuals or groups within a society. These disparities can result from factors like education, employment opportunities, and social inequalities, leading to gaps in living standards and economic mobility. Understanding economic disparities is crucial for addressing issues of poverty, social justice, and implementing effective policy measures aimed at fostering equality and sustainable development. The authors highlight how vast geographic areas, porous maritime borders, and limited law enforcement resources create opportunities for criminal enterprises to thrive. To the question, what policy interventions could address the underlying economic factors that make Pacific nations vulnerable to illicit activities? According to Cronenberg 2016, there is scope for Pacific Island countries to strengthen the policy environment and improve growth performance. However, to do so, their governments need to put in place policies that foster macroeconomic stability and debt sustainability, build institutions through reforms, strengthen confidence in the policy framework, promote the development of financial markets, improve the business environment, and address rigidities in product and factor markets to attract foreign direct investments. Other key policy elements include, number one, improving legislation. By updating legal frameworks to better address organized crime and financial regulations can close loopholes that criminals exploit. UNODC 2016 states that by implementing international legal frameworks and harmonizing national laws with these standards is essential for tackling transnational and organized crime in the Pacific. By adopting these instruments, governments can enhance enforcement, foster international cooperation, and eliminate legal loopholes that criminals exploit, leading to a more coordinated regional response to illicit activities. For instance, in 2026, PNG customs officers voiced concerns about the country's weak drug laws, which hinder law enforcement from prosecuting drug-related cases. Challenges such as financial constraints, administrative issues, and staffing shortages have stalled efforts to develop national drug control measures. As a result, PNG remains one of the Pacific Island countries where certain synthetic drugs and their precursors are not criminalized. Number two, inclusive development programs. By expanding access to education, vocational training, and entrepreneurship programs can empower local communities and reduce economic desperation that drives people toward illicit markets. For instance, the Pacific region has several local and regional networks dedicated to combating transnational crime already. So these include the 28 transnational crime units, TCUs across 20 Pacific Island countries and territories, the TSOC Pacific Task Force, the Pacific Transnational Crime Network, and the Pacific Transnational Crime Coordination Center, with the support of Australia and New Zealand. Number three, enhancing regional collaboration. Since illicit networks often operate transnationally, fostering regional collaboration on financial monitoring, intelligence sharing, and law enforcement can disrupt criminal supply chains. Regional arrangements to mitigate the diseconomies of scale, enhance competition, protect and promote regional interests, and allow greater specialization in areas of comparative advantage. Watson, Sosa Santos, and Aus discussed that despite obstacles in forming strong regional partnerships, Pacific Islands Forum members have reaffirmed their commitment to collaboration. The Bow Declaration on Regional Security identifies transnational crime, human security, environmental and resource security, and cybersecurity as key regional challenges. Its associated action plan aligns with the UN Sustainable Development Goals 8, 14, 15, and 16, focusing on improved cooperation, intelligence sharing, and adaptation of international conventions like the Palermo Convention to combat transnational crime. Additionally, the plan promotes stronger anti-money laundering policies and efforts to reduce public sector corruption. And number four, fair trade and ethical investment. And ensuring that foreign investments benefit local populations rather than exacerbating inequalities can mitigate conditions that enable criminal syndicates to exploit economic vulnerabilities. So closer trade and investment linkages with fast-growing partners, including Australia, New Zealand, and East Asia's rapidly growing economies. To conclude, economic disparities and weak enforcement in the Pacific make the region vulnerable to organized crime. Transnational criminal networks take advantage of poverty, limited job opportunities, and gaps in law enforcement to expand illicit activities. Strengthening economic development, improving legal frameworks, enhancing regional cooperation, and investing in law enforcement and anti-corruption measures are key policy interventions that can address these challenges. Through strategic partnerships and international collaboration, Pacific nations can work toward a more secure and stable future. Thank you, and that's all for my presentation. And congrats FAST for the win. Yep.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Venice and group number 4 for sharing with us your answer. And yes, congratulations to the faculty for winning the open day yesterday. So that brings us to the end of our seminar, our final seminar, seminar number 10 on transnational organized crime. And I'm sure many of you have a lot of questions and comments to ask. We'll continue the discussion in our Seminar 10 discussion forum. But I'll leave you with this question. What can you do to address transnational organized crime? As an individual, as a citizen of PNG, what can you do? Are you going to contribute through awareness in your community? What different activities will you do in order to help not only state actors but non-state actors combat the threat of transnational organized crime? I've been following what Georgina Correa has done, the National Court reporter. She won an award over the weekend, I believe, for outstanding work in journalism. So she's been covering the Kumbakor case and the other cases related to methamphetamine. So that's something I hope all of you, those of you who will be graduating from the journalism program, can continue to work with Georgina and others to cover uh, cases on methamphetamine. But the challenge is to go further, deeper, do more research, do investigative journalism. If you want to go back and trace the source of where the drugs came, that's the major challenge. It's dangerous. You're trying to tap into organized criminal networks and organized gangs, and that's where your journalism work will be faced with uh, pressure and threat from those organized groups. And apart from journalism work, research is another area that we also need to do more. PGIS students can, try to do more research on topics that are related to transnational crime issues. So join organizations like the Institute of National Affairs, National Research Institute, and other organizations where they encourage research that are connected to transnational organized criminal activities. So I'll leave you people with this uh, question for you to ponder, think about, and see how best you can work to help our country address the issue of transnational organized crime. So thank you very much. Thank you to all the 7 groups and all of you for participating in our student-led seminar approach this semester. It's a new or different approach from the learning approaches that you've encountered in the other units that you have taken so far in your studies. And I hope it adds another dimension to your learning and helps you see that, not only we can focus on teacher-centered and learn from the teacher, but you as well can be knowledge creators. You can consume the literature and content that is out there and then present it. So all of us, we learn in the process. So as the facilitator, I thank all of you for your time and for your commitment, for your consideration, and for working with me throughout the course of this semester to implement this learning strategy of our student-led learning strategy, teaching and learning strategy. So thank you everyone for your time and effort, and I wish you all the best in your exams and in your social media awareness campaign. So thank you. You all have a great day. That's the end.